What's up guys, Mike Thomas aka the Young Trishula here, and today I want to talk about the Yugioh Creator Invitational, which happened this past weekend on Saturday, which we managed to get top 8 at the tournament with. We did get knocked out by the Distant Coder. It was the one time we bricked the whole tournament, and you know, there was just nothing I could do, but it was still a good game. So GG to Coder, and it came off the back of a really insane match, probably the highlight of the entire tournament, versus another content creator and a friend of mine, Yadalock. So what I want to do today is I want to drop my deck list from the tournament, talk about it. This tournament did follow a custom ban list, so there are some changes, but following this custom ban list, I used this exact same deck list to get Diamond 1 on the Master Duel Ladder live on Twitch. Go check us out at twitch.tv/TrishulaTTV. So I do want to share this deck list with you guys because we did take in the tournament. We did pretty well with it. Top 8 I'm happy with, and a lot of you have been asking me for an updated Dragon Link deck profile, especially now that Borland is out in Master Duel. So I figure I'll kill two birds with one stone, and we'll just talk about it now. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this kind of content. It really does help me out a lot, and it lets me know to keep making more of it. Also, if you're looking to get better at the game and you want to support me, I do offer coaching sessions through MetaFi. I know from personal experience that sometimes the best way to get better at the game is through a one-on-one approach. I recently found out that I'm within the top 17% of all coaches on their platform, so definitely check me out on there if that is something that you think you might be interested in. Anyway, without wasting any more of your time, guys, let's get into the video. Alright, so hopping into the deck profile, if you haven't seen one of my Master Duel deck profiles before, I'm going to just talk about these cards in the way that it makes sense for me to talk about them, because as far as I know, Master Duel has still not allowed me to organize my deck in a way that makes sense. So bear with me if I'm not talking about these cards in order. So start things off, we played 2 Tracer, 2 Synchron, and a Recharger. This is a pretty standard Dragon Link package. One comment is that Tracer was semi-limited for this event, so this was the maximum number of Tracers I could play. And then to go along with this package, we played 2 Absol, which pairs very nicely with our 3 of Starlight Seifert. Seifert was the starter, the main starter for the deck. But what's really cool about playing Seifert is that if you play multiple copies of Absol, you're likely to draw it alongside the Seifert. And Seifert plus Absol is the best 2-card combination in Dragon Link, because it allows you to start by not only searching out your Tracer, but also searching Noctovision, giving you 2 dragons and a free draw. So it gives you a lot of value for very little investment. And what's nice about it, and why that makes it better than Chaos Space plus Absol, is you get the same amount of advantage as Chaos Space Absol. However, you can still use Chaos Space to get to your babies if you have it. So it makes it slightly better, and it gets you that extra draw to try and draw into that Chaos Space. So it's pretty powerful. So that is the main engine of the deck, with the extenders being the 2 Noctovision, which is slightly worse in Master Duel than it is in the regular TCG because of how OCG treats fast effect hand triggers, but still a pretty good card, mostly there just because it's an extender that lets you draw a card. Only played 2 because it is searchable with the Starliege plus Absol play that we were just talking about, and we didn't want to clog the deck. And then for the other extenders, we played 2 Wyverburster, 2 Collapse Serpent with the 3 Chaos Space. Now, some people have asked me, why do I play the multiple Wyverburster and multiple Collapse? And the reason for that is that you don't always start on Chaos Space. So you want to be able to have it so that your babies will always circle you back to another baby when you start on them. So if I start on white, I'm always going to cycle back to another white in my hand when I'm done. Or if I start on black, I'll cycle back to another black when I'm done. And why that's important is that that always gives you a free discard for Dragon Ravine, so you can actually hold your Chaos Space to put back your Striker Dragon, or however the Chaos Space plays itself out. So it's just very nice for that. The other reason too is that when you mill off of your Chaotic Magical Dragon, this gives you a slightly higher chance to mill one of your babies as an extender, so it gives you a little bit of a better chance to find an extender off of chaotic magical, meaning that if you are just going for like an IP play, it's a lot safer to go for chaotic magical than it would be otherwise. And then for the remaining 2 dragons, we only play 2 left. We play Levianeer and we play Red MD. So some people have asked me about Red MD. Why am I playing Red MD if I'm not playing black metal? And the reason for that is that pure Dragon Link always plays Red MD. It does not matter if you're playing the black metal dragon or not, because this is how you are able to play through a Nibiru. So as long as you have seals on the field, you can just combo. You're going to get to a point where you probably have Tracer plus Recharger on the field. They're going to activate Nibiru. And then you're going to be able to say, okay, that's fine. Resolution, Chainlink 1 seals. Seals summons out the Red MD. You summon out Tracer. You make Quad Boral, pop yourself, and you still end on a Savage at bare minimum. The other thing, too, is that if you have a Boral end on field with a Seals backing it up, you can always Red MD get back that Boral end. And that is a really, really powerful line of play to recover through a Nibiru. So it's really nice for that. As for Levianeer is one of the most powerful cards in your deck. It's also pretty good into Nibiru, because if you get Nibiru'd, you can then Levianeer your opponent and rip them down to 3 cards in hand. So that's pretty useful. You can also sometimes banish 3 lights in order to reborn and extend, which doesn't come up too much, but it is nice to know about. And then of course its pop effect is insanely powerful. It gives you a good matchup into back row. It gives you a lot of utility. This card gives you so much pressure, so I don't think you can cut this in pure. Now moving on, we already mentioned it, but you play the 3 Chaos Space. Other than Seyfert, this is your main starter. It also counts as an extender if you already have a line of play, so not too bad. Then the 3 main extenders or soft starters are the 3 Quick Launch to get to your 2 copies of Tracer. So these are really just extra copies of your rockets. It's E-Telly for dragons. We play then the 2 mandatory field spells, Ravine and Boot Sector. Nothing really much to talk about there. And then I chose to play 2 Called by the Grave, and this will start kind of my transition to talking about the defensive cards because of the recent introduction of Despia into Master Duel. Called by the Grave, I feel like you can sometimes not put in your Dragon Link deck. I feel like it's sometimes safe to not put this card in. However, I think Called by the Grave is like super necessary now that Despia exists, because not only does it stop you from losing to hand traps, but it also allows you to disrupt the opponent's graveyard so that you don't get hit with Branded in Red into Guardian Chimera into Mirror Jade again, which is oftentimes way too much to deal with for this deck. So this card is really important and really strong. Worked out really well for me. I think in about half of my matches, I started with Seyfert. I think every time I started with Seyfert, actually. I normal summoned it, tributed it itself. I got ashed. I chain called by. I think that happened every single time I normal summoned Seyfert during the tournament. So I was really glad I played it. So we played the 2 call by for that. And then as for the hand traps, we played 3 Imperm, 3 Nibiru, 3 Ash, 2 Gamma, and 2 Veiler. To comment on the hand trap ratio, so as I mentioned before, this was a custom banlist tournament, so Max C was banned in this tournament, so none of us could play Max C. So that is why Max C is not in this deck list. If you're building this deck list for Master Duel Ladder, definitely include the Max Cs. Not sure what you would cut, but find space for them. Like, find space for the Max Cs. You definitely want them. So with that in mind, you know, Nibiru's there to punish combo decks, and you want to see Nibiru with a pairing of either Imperm, Veiler, or Gamma, so that you can always guarantee that your nib is going through, ideally. The monster negations pair up pretty well into stuff like Despia, because you can hit the Aluber. In this tournament, the Aluber was limited to 1, so you could pretty safely counter that line. The Gammas are there because they're defensive going first and second, so they're always very nice. And then Ash, of course, hits Branded Fusion, as well as being the most generic hand trap in the game. So definitely still an include at 3. And that was the main deck. We played 42 cards. As for the extra deck was pretty standard. You play the 3 standard synchros of Savage Dragon, Chaos Ruler, and Hot Red. We play the 1 Pisty, and then we played 1 Striker Dragon, because for this tournament it was limited to 1. If you're building this for standard Master Duel, definitely increase this card from 1. If you can fit 3, great. Personally, I find that it's a little bit difficult to fit all 3 of them in Master Duel. 2 is generally okay, but if you can find space for 3 is fantastic. And then I played 2 copies of Hieratic Seal. This was the second Hieratic Seal was largely because I didn't really have space for anything else. At one point, I was playing the Rapid Trigger package with Double Disruptor Dragon and Borreload Furious Dragon, and I ultimately ended up cutting it because I just didn't really feel like... I felt like it was very much win more, that the only times I was going into that package, I was usually already winning the game, so I didn't really feel like I needed it, and the second seal felt nice for if I had to grind. Since this is a pure Dragon Link deck, it is a little bit slower. Your end board is usually like seals and like a hot red, so double seal was definitely pretty nice for me. Then moving on, we played the 1 Dragonian Knight Romulus, the 1 Quad Boral Dragon. Quad Boral, I think I briefly explained earlier. Quad Boral really only comes up when you get Nibiru'd, because it allows you to summon back your Red MD, Reborn the Tracer, Quad Boral, pop yourself, make Savage. I think generally if you're summoning Quad Boral on your first turn, you're misplaying. So that's just kind of a general advice tip for Dragon Link. Don't summon this on your first turn. IP Masquerena. IP, I like going for IP personally. Personally, I would prefer to end on Seal IP than Savage Seal, but it really just depends on how your hand plays out. But we did play IP. IP is very strong. For the new inclusions from new cards that were introduced to Master Duel recently, we played the Dark Charmer Gloomy. Dark is insanely strong and is actually part of the reason that you don't need 2 Hieratic Seal anymore. So 2 Hieratic Seal was definitely a comfort pick, but Dark Charmer usually can allow you to go for a lethal or set up a really cool board going second, since so many decks in the metagame play dark attributed monsters. So you usually have a target for this to reborn, and whenever you can summon the Dark Charmer and put a dragon on the field and they have a target, you either can go for Borland or for like an access code push, and that is part of why we play Triple Burst Dragon. So Triple Burst Dragon is a card that you sometimes need to play in order to do Pisty lines on your turn 1. But more often where Triple Burst comes up is you have a Dark Charmer, you reborn one of their monsters, you make a Pisty, and then you use their monster plus your Dark Charmer to make Triple Burst, and then you reborn into either Borland or go for an access code line somehow. So these 2 cards work really well together, and Triple Burst also just has a bunch of random effects that are sometimes useful, sometimes not. So if they come up, they come up. So card for good arrow that you can summon under Pisty, but also has effects that are sometimes relevant. Then we played Unicorn Access Code. These 2 are a package alongside IP, because usually you're going to IP into Unicorn, spin one of their cards, and then link it off into Access Code. Or if you're just going second, you just Unicorn spin something and then go into Access Code, pop everything. So good utility, good for going second. And then finally, the inclusion of Borland, because it was just introduced into Master Duel. This card I think did pretty okay for me. One thing I'll mention is that, and I feel like this is something that not a lot of Dragon Link players necessarily realize, is that I don't think Borland is a card that you usually want to make on your first turn. I think more often than not, you want to make the seals and have something to back up that seals, because Borland, while it is powerful, is a large commitment that is ultimately just an impermanence. Where I think this card really shines is going second, especially against Despia, just being able to clean up boards and put a lot of pressure on, especially because if your opponent's already set up, you can use this to clean up their field, and then it is very difficult to out, especially if your opponent's low on resources. So this card is like really solid, I think, in the mid game, and I think putting it on the field too early is almost a mistake, because you're giving your opponent a lot of opportunities to get rid of one of your best cards. So personally, I like to go for this card later in the game rather than earlier, but this card is very effective even if you do have to end on it, because sometimes your hand is just one where you have to end on the Borland. So very powerful card, very strong, and I wouldn't say it carries, but it definitely carries some games. So it's very powerful. So that was the deck in regards to the tournament, which we got top 8 at. So GG's to all my opponents. So the tournament was double elimination. I lost in Swiss to Rev's cards, who made it, I think, almost all the way to the end. I think he made it to the top 4, and then I lost to Coder, who I think knocked out Revs. So GG's to both of them. Very good games, and obviously very good players, because they both made the top 4 of the tournament. So congratulations to them. And then also, just while I'm on the subject, I do want to say GG again to Yugioh. We had a fantastic game. And I will say, just as an aside, if this video gets like, I don't know, let's say 100 likes, I will upload the match between Yugioh and myself, because I think there's a lot going on in that match. It's like, it's just a fantastic match from like a spectator perspective, but also I think there's a lot that you guys could learn from it as well. So definitely like the video if you're interested in that. And then as for substitutions that you can make if you want to play this in standard Master Duel Ladder, definitely put the 3 max season. I feel like you could maybe cut down on your Nibiru, maybe cut out like one of the hand traps, put in the 3 max C, maybe you put in a cross out as well. You can possibly take out a Nocto or like the second Collapse Serpent, though I don't love taking out second Collapse, but like you could theoretically, like it's an option. I would also probably cut one of the Heretic Seals for another Striker Dragon, and then, you know, you could also, depending on your comfort level, maybe cut out Quad Boral. You could potentially cut out like several cards for like extra copies of Striker. But anyways, guys, that is all for the video today. That is all I have for you guys today. This deck did very well. Do want to say one last time, GG's to all of my opponent, and huge thank you to ATG Smitty Plays for putting on this tournament. It was a fantastic time as always. Thank you again for having me back. Do remember to drop a like on the video and subscribe if you did enjoy this kind of content. It really does help me out a lot. That's all I had for you guys today, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.